Alright everyone, welcome back to our online learnings. It has been nearly a week since you haven't heard anything from me, right? Because we have just get back to from our holiday. So I hope that your 3-day holiday was a great time for you to meet your relative, to meet your family. However, now it is time to coming back to our lesson, and we are about to have the final exam for your level. So be ready for those exams. So I try my best to cover some of the important lesson points as well as the useful information and useful tip for you to get past your final exam. So in this first video lesson today, we are looking at 10 systems in English. Alright, so as you already know that in English we have 12 tenses, right? With active form and the passive form. Actually, those 12 tenses are a lot for you to remember, for you to recognize the form, but there are shortcuts, right? There are shortcuts for you to be able to remember as well as to recognize the form and the usage of those tenses easily. So in this video, there are two main objectives that you will achieve after you watch this video. First, you will be able to use English tenses, which are 12, correctly. And the second one, you will be able to construct the different tenses correctly. We will focus on the form. All right. So let's start with the tenses in English. As we know since the beginning of your learning journey, English has 12 tenses, right? We have past simple, past continuous, past perfect, as well as past perfect continuous. We have present and future. So if you look at the form right here, those tenses have unique form, but it follows the same structure. So the general structure the English language follow is subject, verb, and object. Okay, so look at all the tenses here. It follows the same basic structure: subject, verb, and object. So this is the foundation of the structure. But how can you recognize the tense? What way you can distinguish between past and present, past and future? How can you distinguish between one tense to another, right? So the way you can recognize the differences or what tense is what, by looking at the verb. That is why the title of this table we call the 12 verb tenses, right? Because each tenses has its unique verb to use with. So the best way to recognize the tense is to look at the verb. But how can you remember? Because there are a lot of tenses. As you look at here, there are 12, right? So the best way to remember that is to divide it into two parts. You look at the word tense in two parts. So tense has two parts. The first one, we call it the time. As you can see here, we have the past time, we have the present time, and we have the future time. So these are the time. And the other row here, we call it the aspect. So what are the difference between time and aspects? And how can understanding the time and aspects help you identify the form and the usage of those 12 English tenses correctly? Okay, so if you look at the usage right here, each tenses have its own unique usage. Okay, so there are a lot of them to remember. So you cannot just try to read and remember all of this. You have to find a better way to remember all this information. So the better way to remember those information, the usage as well as the form, is to understand the time and the aspects. Okay, so let's look at this picture. If you see this picture, it represents the time. So in English or in our language, we have three main time that used to talk about action. So when we talk about time, we want to emphasize when the action happened. Okay, we have the word past, which means the action happened in the past. The word now in the present time, we want to emphasize the action happen in the present time, and in the future as well, we want to emphasize the action will happen in the future. So when we talk about time, we think about when the action happens. Okay, in the past, happen now, or in the future. So if you look at this picture, it well represents the timeline of the tenses in English. When we talk about past simple, we talk about something that happened in the past. Past continuous, also something that happened in the past. Past perfect, something that happened in the past. When we talk about past tense, those actions happen in the past. We don't care how the action happened, but we are only emphasize on the time, right? When we talk about time, so to clearly remember or the foundation of tense, you need to understand these three time. When we talk about now, which is in present, for example, present simple, present continuous, present perfect, we don't care about the action because we're talking about time now. So those actions happen right now or happen in the future. We emphasize on the time. But we have the aspect. For example, we have past simple, past continuous. So these core aspects. So the aspects are not emphasize the time, but it really show you how the action happened. Okay, when we talk about past simple, we know the action happened in the past, and the aspect of the tense is simple, which means it used to express a fact that something happened in the past. When we talk about present simple, we talk about the fact that something happen or exists in the present time. Or future simple, which means we make a prediction or assumption that something will happen in the future. It's express the facts. When we talk about the continuous aspects, right, we focus on action. Remember, when we talk about time, we think about when the action happens or finish. But when we talk about aspect, we think about how the action happened, right? So the continuous aspect, it expresses a incomplete action, which means it's happenings, or the state is in progress at a specific time. When we talk about present continuous, which means action is happening right now. When we talk about past continuous, we think about the action that's still going on at a past moment, right? And the other one, we call it the perfect aspect, and this one is a little bit complicated, but the perfect aspect focuses on the completion of an event. It expresses that the action has or will have been completed by a specific point in time. So when we talk about the perfect aspect, we focus on the completion. It can happen in the past and continue up until the present, but we want to emphasize that those actions have already completed. Okay, for example, let's say I have read 5 books, right? We don't care about when we read that book, but we want to emphasize that we have already read that 5 books. So it focuses on the completion of event or action. So when we combine the perfect aspect and the continuous aspects together, we get another aspect, which is perfect continuous. We can say past perfect continuous, present perfect continuous, and future perfect continuous. So the time is not really important. The time is not really matter, because when we talk about past time, we emphasize on the action that happened in the past. When we talk about present time, whether it is present simple, present perfect, present continuous, we emphasize on the action that happened in the present time. But when we talk about when we talk about perfect continuous aspect, we emphasize on the action. So those action, the use of perfect continuous aspect express that the action has or will have been in progress for some time at a specific point in time. So this point in time may be defined by a time expression. For example, let's say at 5 o'clock, at 7 o'clock, or a clause. We learned about adverb clause of time already, right? When she get home, which is the adverb clause of time. So if you look at the example that use perfect continuous aspect here, I have been waiting for this moment all my life. Okay, so this example express the action that happened from when I was born until now, which is has some specific point in time, which is now. Number two, he's been ironing his shirt. So from some time in the past until now. So those actions are still going on, but it's happened from the past, and right now he is still doing it. Okay. So why you need to understand this aspect? Because just try to memorize the usage of all tenses are very difficult. But when you understand the time and the aspect of these English tenses, those 12 tenses can be easily remembered. Okay. So everyone, thank you very much for your paying attention, watching this video until the end. And if you have any question that need further explanation, you can ask your homeroom teacher to do so for you. So right now, that's the end of the video here. So thank you very much, everyone. Goodbye.